think one of the biggest shifts in a mindset that leaders need to have in these businesses is around the fact that responsible AI is more like a thread. I always say like water in a wave as opposed to like a raisin on a bun. Like you're not sticking it on there. Like it should be just an integral part of the way that you think and how you build everything. So as opposed to building a project and thinking about responsible AI as a checklist or something that you do, it's more something that you are, right? As an organization, you are always building AI responsibly. You're always building technology that won't hurt someone. So at Stanford, they created 3 words to make it easy for us to understand what responsible AI is. And they call it helpful, right? Make sure that when you build a system it is inherently helpful to those who are going to use it, that it's honest, it's inherently not going to lie to you, hallucinations, and that it's also harmless, that it doesn't hurt people either on purpose or by accident. And we saw last year BlenderBot 3. Anyone could go look it up, but there was a BlenderBot 3. It launched on a Friday. By Monday, it had become sexist and racist and hurt people on purpose. And the team that built it, they were surprised at first that it had become this way, but then they realized like the data that it was trained on, but more importantly, the humans that used it gave the model no guidelines, no guardrails, no processes for managing what happens if it starts answering things in a way that isn't helpful, harmless, or honest. And so that's kind of what I tell companies now. Like it's not hard, but it is more of a human activity that you have to start thinking and asking much different questions. You're not thinking, wow, how do I build a software system that's going to make me more money? You're now going to be really much more concerned about what is it going to do to your brand if it hurts someone, if it becomes toxic. And there are lots of technologies and systems. I leverage a term called AI safety systems. Microsoft, Google, Amazon all have these teams in place. It's what I do today. I run AI red teams. And these red teams are adopted from the cybersecurity world, but they actually in AI serve 2 areas. One is how do you build safety systems for adversarial attacks when people are trying to attack your system. But more importantly with AI, what happens when people are accidentally causing systems to behave badly? And that accidental misuse is actually much more dangerous and something that most companies aren't thinking about. I definitely see more opportunity for regulation to play a role, at least in providing some guidance. So we saw this a couple of years ago where the EU started to just plant seeds about the act that they wanted to put together. We then saw the evolution last year of the act coming to fruition, and then just recently it getting passed. So it's really, I think, very interesting for any size business to look at that as a framework, like how they went to market, thinking about the regulations. We did the same thing in the United States. We have an executive order. As a matter of fact, that order keeps evolving. Just recently, they released the executive order on workforce management when it comes to AI. And all of these things, I always say, like, these governments, when they put these systems together, they're not doing it like with only resources they have. They go to the world's best researchers, the world's best technologists, and bring them into a room. So it's really important to look at these because they're probably the most expensive research you can get your hands on. And because it's government, it's open to you. You can use it. So I always tell people, one of the rules in the EU Act, as well as in the executive order in the US, is every company, every federal agency should have a chief AI officer. And I always tell people, like, if you do nothing, have someone who cares about this, that it's their job to care about this and their job to create guardrails around how it will be used. I think it's always really good to look even at smaller local state organizations, either in the US or in Europe, or just like me, I have a Google alert that tells me about any regulation anywhere in the world. So it just notifies me that, this regulation came out from Seattle, Washington, or Phoenix, Arizona, very small entities. But I think the most important thing is which is what I do, I print them all out and maybe I'm old school, I get a highlighter and I dog ear them. But in doing that, I end up finding that all of them have very similar themes. And those themes are good for New Zealand. I mean, yes, I know it's a little intimidating to be like, the US is doing that. Of course, they have all these resources. Everyone's pretty much in the same spot. I mean, everyone is just getting started. And I always tell people the very first thing you should do is just create a mechanism for safe and responsible play inside your organization. So even if you do nothing, and I know that New Zealand is actually working on this, having like a New Zealand GPT inside of the government firewall that people can play with and start ideating on. But I also think have the courage to just put something in place. And that's There's a lot of criticism about the EU Act. There's a lot of criticism about the executive order, but it's better than nothing, right? And I tell companies, I'm like, have something, start with something. Just saying no, don't do that. I mean, I have 6 kids, so I know telling my kids don't play with that is not a good philosophy. Like, it actually draws them closer. They're like, what do you mean don't play with it? Why should I? I should just look at it. So I always encourage organizations, like, at least create a safe playground, create an opportunity for people to play inside your firewall. And a rule that you can set up if you're a government or a small business is, look up in the URL. And if you're an employee and it doesn't say your company's name in the URL, then don't use it.